Magic the Gathering has thousands of creatures spread across the multiverse, but not all tribes are created equal. Today, we're not talking about which tribes are the strongest in tournament play or have the biggest card pools. No, we're going deep on flavor, feel, and vibe. The coolest, most identity-rich creature types in the game. These are the tribes that make you want to build a deck just because they're awesome. Tribes with synergy, distinctiveness, and personality. Ones that tell a story with their names and their mechanics. Let's get into my picks for the top 10 MTG tribes. For over 20 years, I've played Magic the Gathering, the greatest game ever made. Now, I'm counting down its most powerful, iconic, and surprising cards. I'm Weston Whitlock, and this is MTG Top 10. Before we get into the list, I want to explain something that's really important to how Magic cards are made, and what inspired many of my picks for this list. The difference between top-down design and bottom-up design. Let's start with top-down design. This is when a card is created starting with a concept, a story, an image, a piece of flavor, and the mechanics are built to match. You start with the idea and work backwards into the rules. A perfect example is pacifism. Just from the name, you already know what to expect. The art shows a warrior dropping his weapons and armor. The effect, the creature can't attack or block. That feels right. Everything about the card, the name, the art, the rules text, even the flavor text sells a single unified idea. That's top-down design done perfectly. Now, let's talk about bottom-up design. This is where a card is built to serve a mechanical purpose first. Maybe to balance limited or to fill a design slot in standard, and then the flavor is layered afterwards to make it feel like it belongs in the world. Take Pin to the Earth, for example. Check out the art. A giant is being smashed to the ground, and then you read the effect. Enchanted creature gets -6, -0. Hold on, that's it? Shouldn't the creature also lose flying? You're telling me I can literally pin a dragon into the earth and it's still flying over my creatures? This is what can happen when a card is designed bottom up. Mechanically, it's meant to be a cheap blue aura that reduces a creature's power without removing it from combat. That was the gameplay role it needed to fill. The flavor, Pin to the Earth, was tacked on afterward to make the effect sound cool. But when you stop and think about it, the name and effect just don't line up. So here's the key difference. Top-down design is flavor first, rules second. Bottom-up design is rules first and flavor second. Whole sets can be designed top-down too. My favorite example is Original Innistrad, a world of gothic horror filled with werewolves that flip under the full moon, vampires with blood-soaked elegance, and zombies crawling out of the grave. Every mechanic in that set was built to support a feeling, not just a play pattern. Top-down design is what makes Magic feel like more than just numbers and keywords. It's what turns cardboard into storytelling. And that's what this list is really about. The tribes that capture flavor so well, you just have to build a new deck for them. Kicking off our list at number 10, we have Dinosaurs. Few tribes feel as huge, primal, and prehistoric. Mechanically, Dinosaurs lean into their large size and aggression. Their average mana cost is high, which makes sense. These are massive beasts. But the game balances this with cards like Kinjali's Collar and Otepec Huntmaster, which reduce their costs and speed up their arrival. One of the most flavorful mechanics attached to Dinosaurs is Enrage. This ability triggers when the creature is damaged, which perfectly mirrors the idea of a giant beast getting angrier when provoked. Ripjaw Raptor draws cards, Ranging Raptor ramps, and Polyraptor makes more copies of itself. And speaking of Polyraptor, this is one of my absolute favorites. It's quite expensive, but man does it get out of hand quick. It can even make infinite tokens with Forerunner of the Empire and Aetherflash. Many dinosaurs have a lot of raw power. Take Gigantosaurus. It's just 5 green mana for a 10/10, which is ridiculously satisfying to slam on the board. Or Galta, Primal Hunger, who can be cast for as little as 2 mana with a big enough board. And the other Galta, Stampede Tyrant, who dumps your entire hand of creatures onto the battlefield. You want dinosaurs that feel overwhelming? That's the one. And finally, Atali, Primal Conqueror, and its terrifying flip side, Atali Primal Sickness. It's one of the best reanimation targets in the game, combining huge card advantage with an infect finisher. My favorite dinosaur commander has to be Zakama, Primal Calamity. It untaps your lands, gives you removal, life gain, and creature destruction in one giant snarling package. Playing a dinosaur deck feels like you're awakening ancient power. You ramp into enormous bodies, slam them onto the battlefield, and watch your opponents scramble to answer. It's raw, thematic, and wildly fun. You don't need to explain it. People get it. Dinosaurs are awesome. Up next at number 9, we have Goblins. From a flavor standpoint, Goblins are Magic's tricksters. They fumble their way through battle, often causing as much harm to themselves as to their enemies. The flavor text on Goblin cards reads like punchlines from a joke book. Here are a few of my favorites. I'll start out with this amazing 4-card poem from the cards Tidal Surge, Ogre Taskmaster, Wild Griffin, and Tremor. 4 little goblins trapped by the sea. 1 teased a serpent, then there were 3. 3 little goblins enjoying their brew. 1 bumped an ogre, then there were 2. 2 little goblins out in the sun, down came a griffin, and then there was 1. 1 little goblin shook up the ground, when the dust cleared, no one was found. I love these fun little touches Magic has. Here's a few more flavor texts I find hilarious and a perfect representation of the Goblin tribe. Pause if you want to read them. Mechanically, Goblins are one of the most synergistic tribes in the game. They're built for aggression and speed, with a focus on swarming the board with low-cost creatures and sacrificing them for explosive value. Cards like Skirk Prospector let you turn Goblins into mana. Goblin Grenade lets you throw them at your opponents for a huge burst of damage. In Cranko Mob Boss, he's a 1 Goblin army who doubles your forces every turn. And yes, he's one of my absolute favorites. Few cards feel as satisfying as watching your board multiply exponentially every turn. Let's talk some more favorites. At the top of my list is Goblin Sharpshooter. This card is pure chaos. It pings anything, untaps when things die, and with the right setup, it can clear entire boards. Just find a way to give it Death Touch. I've seen games pivot around this 1 card alone. And then there's Goblin Lackey, the ultimate turn 1 dream. If it connects, you're dropping a huge threat onto the battlefield for free. It feels like cheating in the most Goblin way possible. Don't underestimate Broadside Bombardiers either. People overlook this one, but it turns every Goblin or spare artifact into damage that closes out games fast. In Goblin Recruiter, that's some insane tribal value. It stacks your deck with exactly what you need. Perfect if you're setting up for something like Muxus Goblin Grandee, who can hit the board and change the entire state of the game. And finally, Kiki Jiki, Mirror Breaker. This card is an absolute legend. It's the foundation of countless infinite combos, and it embodies the chaotic, unpredictable energy that makes Goblins so fun. If you want to know more about the combos it enables, check out my video, MTG Top 10 2-Card Infinite Combos. You'll see why Kiki Jiki is such an iconic piece of Goblin history. The flavor and mechanics are in perfect sync. Goblins don't live long, but they live loud. You play them fast, flood the board, and overwhelm your opponents before they can mount a defense. And even if it all goes wrong, it's still hilarious. Slinking into number 8, we have Vampires. Vampires are the embodiment of Gothic fantasy and magic. Seductive, elegant, and utterly dangerous. They're one of the few tribes that can feel both noble and monstrous at the same time. From their earliest appearances in Alpha, vampires were depicted as powerful loners. But over the years, they've evolved into something more refined, especially in Innistrad and Ixalan. On Innistrad, vampires are Gothic aristocrats who feed on the living in lavish banquets. In Ixalan, they're religious zealots, drawing divine power through blood. Mechanically, vampires thrive on lifelink, +1/+1 counters, and sacrificing creatures for value. Cards like Patron of the Vein and Sangir Vampire show how they feed and grow stronger. Bloodthirsty Conqueror and Exquisite Blood contribute to the tribe's predatory identity. You hurt your enemies and heal yourself. Let's dive into a few of my favorite vampire cards. Edgar Markov is the definitive vampire commander. His Eminence ability ensures your board grows with every vampire spell you cast, even before he hits the battlefield himself. The pressure he creates from turn 1 is unmatched, and he's become a staple for anyone serious about Vampire Tribal and Commander. Blade of the Blood Chief, Olivia's Wrath, and Sorin Imperious Bloodlord are all essential tools in the Vampire arsenal. Blade turns every death into power. Olivia's Wrath is a devastating one-sided board wipe, and Sorin can cheat huge vampires into play while buffing your creatures with +1/+1 counters. Captivating Vampire is exactly what the name implies, utterly captivating. It buffs your team and lets you steal opposing creatures once you've got enough vampires, which is easy to do when Edgar Markov is your commander. It's flavorful, powerful, and deeply thematic. Cards like Vein Ripper and Blood Artist embody the blood for power exchange that defines the tribe. Whether you're draining your opponents or punishing them for every death, these cards reflect the vampire identity perfectly. I have to shout out Vito, Thorn of the Dusk Rose, and Bloodletter of Aclazotz. They offer tremendous reach and synergy, turning life gain into game-ending swings. But two designs that stand above the rest in my eyes. First, we have Olivia Voldaren. Olivia is a vampire queen with a toolkit to match. When she deals damage to a creature, that creature turns into a vampire. Just like how in books and films, when a vampire bites someone, that someone will turn into a vampire as well. 10 out of 10 design for flavor. My other pick for perfect flavorful design goes to Screeching Bat. This bat can literally transform back and forth from a bat to a vampire. How freaking cool is that? Admittedly, this card is not very powerful, but man is it a cool design. There's something innately satisfying about playing a tribe where every attack strengthens you. You feel the hunger grow, the pressure build. It's less about massive board and more about turning every point of damage into leverage. Whether you're draining your opponent turn by turn or building an unstoppable aristocrat engine, vampires let you rule the game with their fangs, flair, and finesse. Soaring into the number 7 spot, dragons. They aren't just a creature type, they're a staple in fantasy lore. From the earliest days of Magic with Shivan Dragon on store shelves in 1993, dragons have stood as a symbol of power, majesty, and danger. If you're casting a dragon, something epic is about to happen. And now is the perfect time to talk about them. The current set, Tarkir Dragonstorm, is absolutely full of dragons. Dragons are the boss monsters of Magic. Their flavor is baked into their mechanics. Flying, big bodies, splashy effects. Most dragons cost 5 or more mana, but they repay that cost with raw impact. Glorybringer dominates combat. Dragonlord Ojutai becomes a card-drawing engine. Balefire Dragon wipes the board with fire. But the real magic is in the variety. Dragons span all colors and identities. They also make amazing commanders. Some of my favorites include Corvold, Fakehurst King, for his sacrifice and draw synergy, Arcades the Strategist for an unexpected wall tribal twist, and of course, the Dragon, the go-to for anyone building a 5-color dragon deck that wants to cheat monsters into play and overwhelm the table. Tarkir Dragonstorm introduced dragon-focused synergies that felt both mechanical and mythological. Cards like Call of the Spirit Dragons give massive buffs, and the new cycle of Dragonstorm enchantments makes building a dragon deck more exciting than ever. And let's not forget Nicol Bolas, the Ravager. This card starts as a powerful flying threat and flips into Nicol Bolas, the Arisen, a game-warping planeswalker. It's peak dragon drama, and one of the coolest narrative moments ever printed on a card. Dragons also get to live in supplemental products. The Ancient Cycle of Dragons, Ancient Copper Dragon, Ancient Silver Dragon, Brass, Bronze, and Gold. Each bring devastating effects with flavor of majesty and greed. Drawing cards, ramping, draining. These dragons don't just look legendary, they play that way too. What's especially flavorful is how dragons vary across colors and planes. In Tarkir, dragons became 5 distinct broods, each aligned with a wedge color identity and a unique keyword. In Kamigawa, dragons like Jugen the Rising Star and Ryusai the Falling Star explode into powerful effects when they die, almost mythological in scope. Dragons are often the centerpiece of decks, not just another card. That's flavor first thinking. Their presence on the battlefield changes the tone of the game. Players stop what they're doing. They reach for removal. The dragons have landed. And that's the essence of top-down design, taking the feeling of awe and translating it into gameplay. At number 6, rising from the roots, elves are Magic's oldest expression of nature, harmony, and collective power. But don't let their grace fool you, elves can be absolutely brutal. Flavor-wise, elves are usually depicted as deeply connected with the land. They channel magic from the forests, speak to ancient spirits, and draw strength from unity. On the battlefield, that translates into synergy. Every elf seems to make your other elves better. Their cards often show them as elegant warriors or serene spellcasters, but their gameplay tells a different story: relentless efficiency. Let's talk favorites. First up, the raw power cards. Deathrite Shaman is a 1-mana planeswalker in disguise, disrupting graveyards, gaining life, and ramping all in one. Beast Whisperer turns your elf ball deck into a draw engine, keeping your hand full as your army grows. Edric, Spymaster of Trest, incentivizing combat and piles on card advantage. while Allosaurus Shepherd shuts down counter magic and turns your whole board into a dinosaur stampede. It's one of the best tribal payoff cards ever printed. When it comes to combo potential, elves have it in spades. Devoted Druid and Heritage Druid enable crazy mana loops and untapped shenanigans. It's easy to generate infinite mana or cast your whole deck when elves get rolling. Then there's Ramp. No tribe ramps harder than elves. Circle of the Dreams Druid generates a green mana for every elf you control. Priest of Titania can scale like crazy in an elf tribal deck. And Raphaelos, Llanowar Emissary, is so explosive, he's banned in Commander. The synergy is off the charts. And speaking of synergy, elves have some of the best lords in the game. Elvish Archdruid buffs your team and ramps. Elvish Champion gives your elves Forest Walk, making it feel like your army disappears into the trees before striking. Imperious Perfect pumps your board and churns out tokens. These are the lords that feel earned. They reward you for building the tribe and snowball beautifully. As for commanders, elves have incredible options. Galadriel, Light of Valinor, brings the flavor of Middle-earth while enabling powerful draw and ramp. Lathril, Blade of the Elves, rewards token builds and plays into the classic go-wide strategy. But my personal favorite, Risk the Redeemed, a 1-mana commander with a board-doubling effect that feels utterly explosive. There's nothing quite like going from a modest board state to overwhelming the table in a single turn. Elves may look like peaceful forest people, but in Magic, they're an unstoppable green tide. Playing them feels like planting a seed and watching it grow into a massive forest. That's the magic of elves. Tearing through at number 5, werewolves are one of Magic's most flavorful tribes, period. They've always been a masterclass in top-down design. The very idea of a creature flipping under a full moon is built right into the rules. You get daytime, nighttime, and all the tension in between. Cards like Huntmaster of the Fells, which flips into Ravager of the Fells, and Mare of Averbrook, who transforms into Howlpack Alpha, are some of the earliest and best examples of this duality. The tribe is filled with explosive threats. Averbrook Caretaker, which becomes Hollowhenge Huntmaster, offers hexproof and constant buffs to your board. Howlpack Piper turns into Wildsong Howler, giving you a steady flow of werewolves. And Tovlar's Huntmaster, who transforms into Tovlar's Pack Leader, is a value engine in creature form. Then there's Reckless Stormseeker, which flips into Stormcharge Slasher, a card that puts a lot of pressure on your opponents. You also get card advantage. Werewolf Pack Leader provides card draw and a big body for just 2 mana. Suspicious Stowaway, flipping into Seafarer Werewolf, gives you an unblockable threat that can draw you cards. Fantastic value and flavor in one. Synergy-wise, this tribe is tight. Cards like Full Moon's Rise pump your pack and protect them. Howlpack Resurgence gives your whole team trample and flash buffs. The Celestus ties the day-night mechanic together, helping you control the pace of the game. If you're looking to play a werewolf army in Commander, there's no better choice than Tovlar, Dire Overlord, who flips into Tovlar, the Midnight Scourge. He's card draw, a finisher, and a way to control the day-night cycle all in one. He's easily the best tribal commander for werewolves, and one of the most flavorful in the entire format. Werewolves aren't just a tribe, they're a story. Every transformation feels like a moment. Every swing feels like a struggle between beast and man. If you want your Magic deck to feel like a horror movie where you're rooting for the monster, werewolves are where it's at. Clawing their way up from the grave at number 4, zombies. When it comes to sheer theme, zombies are in a league of their own. No tribe feels more like a cohesive horror story brought to life. They're grim, relentless, and grotesquely synergistic. You're not just playing a deck, you're orchestrating an undead uprising. Let's start with the most thematic zombies, cards that feel like they crawled right out of the Necromancer's Grimoire. Gravecrawler can be cast from the graveyard if you already control another zombie. Master of Death keeps coming back again and again, making you pay life to return it from the graveyard. It's a haunting reminder that the dead never stay gone. Stitcher's Supplier dumps cards from your library into your graveyard when it enters and dies. A flavor win for the grotesque Frankenstein style of zombies in Innistrad. In Carrion Feeder, a zombie that eats other creatures to grow, if that doesn't scream dark necromantic horror, nothing does. But what really sets zombies apart is how deep their tribal support is. They have more tribal lords than any other creature type. Let's take a breath and run through them. Undead War Chief, Tomb Tyrant, Risen Executioner, Nafri, Betrayer King, Lord of the Undead, Lord of the Accursed, Liliana's Devotee, Gisa, the Hellraiser, Diregraph Captain, Death Priest of Merkel, Death Baron, Cemetery Reaper, Blade Stitch Scob, and the biggest powerhouse of them all, Mikaeus, the Unhallowed. That's 13 zombie lords, each bringing something unique to the table. More power, evasion, recursion, or protection. Need card advantage? Zombies have you covered. Cryptbreaker turns your spare zombies into cards and lets you discard to create more. Sidisi, Undead Vizier, tutors any card in your deck. Undead Augur is a perfect fit, drawing cards every time one of your zombies dies. In most decks, that's a cost. In zombies, that's synergy. If you're looking for a commander who brings all of this together, look no further than Wilhelt, the Rock Cleaver. Every time one of your non-token zombies dies, Wilhelt gives you a decayed zombie token in return. Pair that with all the lords and death triggers, and you've got a value engine that just won't quit. Wilhelt doesn't just lead your zombies, he recycles them. Synergy-wise, it gets wild. Warren Soul Trader lets you turn your zombies into mana and life. Poxwalkers come back from the grave when you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand. A perfect fit for aristocrat-style builds. And of course, the finishers. Grey Merchants of Affidel, aka Gary, he drains everyone based on your devotion to black. And in a zombie deck, that number can be massive. Rot Hulk is an absolute powerhouse, reanimating multiple zombies every time it enters the battlefield. Recur it, blink it, clone it, it never stops building your horde. Playing zombies isn't about speed, it's about inevitability. You grind, you sacrifice, you rise again. The tribe embraces death, turns it into strength, and overwhelms the board with wave after wave of the undead. Flashing into the number 3 spot, we have ninjas. No tribe in Magic embodies top-down design quite like ninjas. When you play ninja cards, you're not just executing game mechanics, you're executing a stealth operation. Every aspect of the tribe's identity, from their mechanics to their flavor to their surprise factor, perfectly captures what it feels like to be a shadowy agent slipping past defenses. And the magic of it all, that comes from ninjutsu, one of the coolest and most flavorful mechanics ever printed. You attack with a weak, unassuming creature, maybe a little unblockable 1/1, and suddenly, that creature vanishes, replaced by a deadly ninja dealing damage and triggering an ability. You feel like a tactician pulling off a surprise ambush, and your opponent never sees it coming. And the crown jewel of this tribe, the commander that puts ninjas on the map, is none other than Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow. Let's talk about Yuriko. She's not just the most popular ninja commander, she's the most popular blue-black commander overall on EDHREC. And it's easy to see why. Yuriko has ninjutsu from the command zone, which is already incredible. And then also, every time a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, you reveal the top card of your library and deal damage to everyone equal to its mana value. Then you draw it. And Yuriko is far from alone. Fallen Shinobi and Silent Blade Oni are two of the most devastating cards to sneak into play. Fallen Shinobi lets you exile 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck and cast them for free. Nothing feels more ninja than turning your opponent's tools against them. In Silent Blade Oni, you hit someone and cast any card from their hand. Just pure thematic theft. You want weird? Let's get weird. Kaido, Bane of the Moon, is a planeswalker with ninjutsu. That's right, a planeswalker you can drop into play like a ninja. It's wild, it's creative, and it flips the script on what ninjutsu can be. And what about classic ninja flavor? Ink Eyes, Servant of Oni, is pure poetry in motion. Not only does she have regeneration and ninjutsu, but when she hits, she can reanimate a creature from your opponent's graveyard. Against a reanimator deck, Ink Eyes becomes their worst nightmare. Thanks for loading up the graveyard, I'll take that Shieldred now. For early game value, Moon Circuit Hacker is a 1-mana powerhouse. A 1-drop ninja with a built-in looting effect that can turn into card draw, there's a reason this card sees play across multiple formats. It's smooth, efficient, and does everything a ninja deck wants. Even if you're not going all in on ninjas, enablers like Tatsunari Toad Rider make ninjutsu easier than ever. He makes unblockable tokens, fits into multiple strategies, and adds a bit of extra personality with his demonic toad buddy. And of course, every good tribe needs a lord. Silver Fur Master gives your ninjas and rogues a buff and makes ninjutsu cheaper. It's simple, effective, and great to curve into. Ninjas are all about deception, misdirection, and striking at the perfect moment. But more than that, they're fun. Playing them feels like flipping the table mid-game. One moment, your board looks unimpressive, and the next, you're dealing huge damage, casting spells from your opponent's libraries, and drawing half your deck. Few tribes blend theme, mechanics, and playstyle as smoothly as ninjas. They're sharp, stylish, and endlessly satisfying. Creeping into number 2, Slivers are hands down one of the most distinct and flavorful tribes in all of Magic the Gathering. Where most tribes are collections of similar creatures, Slivers are a hive mind. Every sliver connects to another sliver, evolving together, adapting as a single, ever-growing organism. From the moment they first appeared in the Tempest block, Slivers immediately stood out. They weren't knights, zombies, or elves, they were alien, communal, and horrifyingly efficient. The very concept of Slivers is flavor first. One grants all slivers flying, another gives vigilance, death touch, haste, you name it. As the hive grows, each member enhances the whole. It's an ever-shifting swarm of shared power, and it plays exactly like that on the battlefield. There's nothing quite like watching your board snowball. You start with a muscle sliver for a basic buff, then sinew sliver joins in. Maybe venom sliver gives everyone death touch. Now suddenly your team has trample, vigilance, haste, and first strike, and each new addition could completely change how your army operates. It feels less like a creature deck and more like you're building a super organism. Mechanically, this is one of the tightest tribal synergies Magic has ever designed. Slivers reward you for sticking with the tribe harder than almost any other archetype. There are no half measures when you build Slivers. You go all in. And that cohesion isn't just mechanical, it's deeply flavorful. Slivers are presented as terrifying alien creatures that mutate rapidly, evolve collectively, and operate as one. The art shows serpentine limbs, blade-like appendages, and sensory overloads. Many Slivers have no eyes, no mouths, just motion and menace. They feel otherworldly. That biological horror is carried beautifully through the flavor text, the visual design, and the shared abilities. The Sliver legends are just as iconic. Sliver Overlord lets you tutor up any Sliver from your deck, because of course the hive can find exactly what it needs. Sliver Hive Lord grants the entire swarm indestructibility. Sliver Queen, the original mother of the brood, just casually pumps out tokens to keep the tide rising. And more recent designs like Sliver Grave Mother and Sliver Legion show how Wizards continues to expand the hive's identity in bold and powerful ways. Playing Slivers in Commander is an experience like no other. The tribe supports 5-color decks naturally, because the most powerful cards are spread across the color pie. But unlike the other 5-color tribes that feel loose or scattered, Slivers demand you use all 5 colors, and reward you for doing so with exponential energy. It makes for some of the most thrilling tribal games possible. If you love Slivers like I do, you should definitely check out my full video dedicated to them, MTG Top 10 Slivers, where I break down the best Slivers of all time, go deep on strategy, and highlight just how wild this tribe can get. Slivers are tribal magic in its purest form. Flavor and mechanics are woven together so tightly they're inseparable. Every card, every ability, every interaction is part of a larger identity. Before we reveal the number 1 tribe, we have a few honorable mentions to cover. First up is Merfolk. Merfolk have been with Magic from the very beginning, but what makes them stand out isn't just longevity, it's versatility. They've been a staple in competitive formats for years, especially in Modern and Legacy. Decks like Mono Blue Merfolk dominated metas with a perfect blend of tempo and tribal synergy, using Lord of Atlantis, Silvergill Adept, and Aether Vow to swarm the board and control the pace of the game. Merfolk is one of the most mechanically tight aggro-tribal strategies Magic has ever seen. They're clever, coordinated, and deceptively deadly. Squirrels. For years, squirrels were the ultimate joke tribe. Cards like Squirrel Nest and Deranged Hermit existed mostly as memes. But with sets like Modern Horizons 2, they transformed into a legitimate archetype. Chatterfang Squirrel General gave squirrel lovers the commander they've always dreamed of, and Squirrel Sanctuary helped cement their identity as a tribe that overwhelms with absurd numbers. Fun fact, Mark Rosewater, head designer of Magic, absolutely loves squirrels. He's championed their inclusion for decades, and thanks to his persistence, the tribe has gone from punchline to powerhouse. Walls/defenders. At first glance, walls don't seem like much. They don't attack, they don't pressure life totals. But that's what makes them so cool. Wizards has done an amazing job of turning even the seemingly passive tribe into something exciting. Cards like Doran the Siege Tower, High Alert, and Arcades the Strategist flip the entire concept of creature combat on its head. Suddenly, your defenders are swinging for lethal. They're drawing cards and forming control engines. Walls may not move fast, but they hit harder than you'd think. We've seen cunning ninjas, overwhelming elves, and even the hive mind terror of Slivers. But there's one tribe that towers above them all. A tribe that doesn't just win games, it unravels them. A tribe so powerful, so flavor-rich, so unlike anything else in Magic, that facing them feels less like a match and more like the end of the world. These aren't just creatures. They are cataclysms in cardboard form. You know it's coming, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. Number 1 is here. Brace yourself for the Eldrazi. Few tribes inspire as much awe or existential dread as the Eldrazi. These aren't just creatures. They're cosmic forces. They don't belong to a specific plane. They just consume them. And that otherworldly presence makes them one of the most flavorful, terrifying, and unforgettable tribes Magic has ever created. When the Eldrazi first appeared in Rise of the Eldrazi, they changed the game. Wizards of the Coast adjusted how sets were structured to give these titanic, colorless beings room to breathe. Cards like Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn, Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, and Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre, didn't just play differently, they felt different. Their mechanics, Annihilator, extra turns, indestructibility, were a message. These beings don't play by the rules of the multiverse. One of my personal favorite Eldrazi creatures is It That Betrays, one of the best reanimation targets ever printed. When opponents sacrifice permanents, you get them, and that works with the Annihilator trigger too. Pair it with All Is Dust, a devastating tribal board wipe that leaves only Eldrazi standing, and you've just dismantled your opponent's board and stolen their souls. It's savage, flavorful, and deeply thematic. Eldrazi flavor is defined by alien logic and overwhelming inevitability. Take Void Winnower. Your opponents can't cast spells with even mana values. It's weird, uncomfortable, and absolutely on brand. It's not just strong, it's wrong in the best way. That surreal logic is what sets Eldrazi apart. When Emrakul, the Promise End, hit standard, it shook the format. It literally lets you take your opponent's turn. This card embodied the horror of Emrakul's influence on Innistrad, warping not just minds, but the entire metagame. She was a flavor home run and a standard-defining monster, so much so that she was later banned in Standard. Then there are the Eldrazi synergy pieces like Echo of Eternity, which doubles your colorless spells and their triggered abilities. Or attach Eldrazi Conscription to any creature and suddenly your humble mana dork is a 10/10 annihilating monstrosity. That kind of raw transformation is pure cosmic horror and pure fun. If you want to talk about format-shaking power, we have to bring up Thought-Knot Seer, which helped define the infamous Eldrazi Winter in Modern. It was efficient, disruptive, and synergized perfectly with Eye of Ugin and Eldrazi Temple. The deck was so oppressive that multiple cards were banned. That's how powerful and flavorfully unified this tribe can be. More recent printings keep the mythos alive. Kozilek, the Broken Reality, and Ulamog, the Defiler, are terrifying evolutions of the original Titans, messing with time, exile, and even the concept of card advantage. They continue the tradition of bending the rules of Magic in ways that feel cosmically inevitable. Commander players have tons of options. Zuladok Voidgorger gives your massive colorless spells cascade, turning every Eldrazi into a one-card avalanche. Ulalek, Fused Atrocity, brings the feel of an unstoppable hybrid monstrosity, making for wild gameplay and a one-of-a-kind legend. And my personal favorite Eldrazi commander, Azlask, the Swelling Scourge. Let me read what it does. Azlask is 3 generic mana for a 2/2 that reads, whenever Azlask or another colorless creature you control dies, you get an experience counter. Wooburg, creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of experience counters you have. Scions and Spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 until end of turn. It thrives when surrounded by Eldrazi Scions and Spawns. And when you lean into that synergy, things spiral out of control fast. Every time one of these little tokens dies for mana, Azlask gets exponentially more terrifying. Cards like From Beyond, Awakening Zone, and Skittering Invasion flood the board with fodder, and suddenly you're sacrificing tokens, gaining experience counters, and swinging in with a horde of indestructible, annihilating tokens. And that's what makes it the perfect centerpiece for an Eldrazi token swarm. Brisella, Voice of Nightmares, deserves a mention. Melded from Bruna and Gisela, she feels like something torn straight from a Lovecraftian horror tale. Her ability to shut down low-cost spells and her angelic yet twisted appearance make her the perfect thematic nod to what the Eldrazi represent. The corruption of purity and the horror of transformation. So why are Eldrazi number 1? Because they're everything great top-down design should be. Their mechanics don't just support their flavor, they become it. Every line of rules text feels like an echo from another reality. When you build an Eldrazi deck, you're not just building strategy, you're summoning the end of all things. That's why they rise, cosmic, corrupting, and completely unforgettable at number 1. That's my list of top 10 MTG tribes, judged by flavor, feel, and the kind of gameplay that turns spells into stories. Do you think I missed one? Want to rep your favorite? Drop it in the comments. And if this video hit you right in the Vorthos, be sure to like and subscribe for more flavor-packed deep dives. I'm Weston Whitlock, and this is MTG Top 10. Stay odd, and we'll see you next time.